Yeah, this whole controversy doesn't seem to be losing steam with the aforementioned Ting from Taiwan winning a medal match against Svetlana Kamenova of Bulgaria, uh, who is being presented made an XX sign, which who knows? Perhaps that's what was being conveyed. It seems like one of these things where we might find out later that no, in Bulgarian, this actually means something different. I don't know, but that's what the British tabloid I'm looking at says happened. And it's one of these situations where I'm either going to get a certain perspective from a British tabloid or the New York Post, and a lot of the quote unquote prestigious publications in America are going to completely bury and obscure the most interesting aspects of this controversy, which, look, you can say this controversy isn't that important in the grand scheme and we spend too much time on it as a culture. I would certainly buy that, but it is a window into a lot of other things, one of which is that the media, to generalize, seems more socially motivated than financially motivated. It doesn't seem like, I know you said that in search of clicks, they were presenting one perspective. I don't even know if it's that, Colin. It almost
Mm.
seems like they're just very much committed to a certain ideological perspective, because the clicks are in talking about that XX symbol. And I only see a few papers really talking
Yeah.
about that one, trying to figure it out. So yeah, it's it just to put an additional take on that take, I guess what I would say to some of those people in media, um, people who are otherwise reasonable but are fighting this and seem angry at people who had a certain response from reaction, is that somebody has to make the guardrail. And that just has to happen, because when it comes to this, if you actually know a little something about human biology, it's either going to happen the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is what you're talking about, Colin, where the IOC steps up and has a competent set of rules. But if it's ollie ollie oxen free and anybody can do anything, a woman is just going to get seriously hurt or killed. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. And then I assume from that point, I would have to assume then that would compel more stringent rules. But that is clearly the end point if there are no guardrails. And I don't think that's moral. And if I'm going to editorialize further, because we're doing a delicate balancing act of trying to inform and trying not to be too emotional about it, but also giving opinion, I do get frustrated with people adopting a position of such intense sanctimony and scorn and anger at people like yourself and others who want these barriers, because what they ultimately are cruising towards is the scenario that I just brought up, and that's not moral. And I am a little bit sick of it. I will editorialize that. I am a little sick of people acting as moral authorities and trying to shame and stigmatize other people who are, I think, expressing ethical concerns, highly reasonable ethical concerns.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people who are letting this continue, they get sort of these social brownie points in the short term, and they're just like, "Oh, look how," it's the people who just, I guess, prioritize inclusion over anything else. And this is, the IOC has explicitly said sometimes that their number one priority is inclusion for their sports. When making policies about DSD or transgender athletes, and that's just you can't balance really inclusion and safety. It's kind of one or the other. So people like me and others who are concerned, we're saying that, well, this is going to end at some point. It will, because it's extremely unpopular having males compete in female sports, and it's just a matter of when. The longer it goes on, you're going to have some crazy thing happen, and it's going to take a crazy thing like someone getting killed or someone getting brain damage in the ring, in order to just shock the system enough where everyone says, okay, we've had enough, we're ending this right now. And we're saying, well, that's going to happen at some point, the long enough this goes on to. So how about we just try to get some sane policies now before we have someone killed or get severe brain damage. This is all we're asking. This is the least bigoted thing I can imagine stating, and also, and it's the least complex thing I can state in terms of basic facts about what males and females are. And it's gonna end at some point. We just need to do it now. I have someone from the Olympics. They feigned that they were just open to all these different policies. I can't remember who exactly it was. Some leader. They said we're open to having all of these these conversation, but it's just it's impossible to have a good system to vet who should be in the female category. And it's like, that's totally false. I know all the people who are writing the policies on this. You won't take their phone calls. Okay. And we've been
Mm.
desperately reaching out to you guys to make sure that you get this in line. Plenty of other organizations can do it. World Rugby is able to do this. The swimming, whichever the swimming international organization is, they're able to do it. Boxing can do it too. There's no reason why they can't.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Obviously, there are edge cases and complications, but you need to have a line somewhere, and it seems like a line can be drawn to prevent some horrific outcome. And in this case, the horrific outcome hasn't come to pass. I think people have brought up that Khelif had lost some matches to women in the past, maybe has subsequently done more training. I don't know. But if you don't have a rule, if you don't have a barrier, it's just really a matter of time. And I think people will sometimes tease those of us who make that observation or have a certain reaction. I know that I think there's something to that where all these people on the right, for instance, all of a sudden care about women's sports and they don't care about women's sports generally. That's true. And it's kind of funny. But I also just think that we have a sense of right and wrong, regardless of who we are. I'm not obsessed with women's boxing. I'm not obsessed with women's swimming. But I believe in fairness, and I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right to have somebody with male physiology completely dominating women in these sports. What's funny, though, Colin, is there's almost this weird horseshoe where some people on the right are accelerationists and they think it's funny to watch this all happen and cheer it on. And that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I think there's something. I mean, what do you make of what I keep bringing up? The shaming and the stigmatization of having that reaction and going, I don't think it's ethical. What it feels a little bit upside down to me. I mean, what do you make of that?
I just, it's all about where their priorities are at, I guess. They don't think it's ethical for telling, these people with extraordinarily rare genetic conditions that
Mm,
you can't compete in that you can't compete here, that we need to let these people go in. And in some cases, letting people who are just totally unambiguously male, like Leah Thomas and Laurel Hubbard and things like that, compete in female sports. Um, but to me, like, where's the ethics on the side of it with all the other women? You add
yeah.
one male to this category, and you endanger every single woman in that category. Why are we trying to spare the feelings of one person who, through no fault of their own, in the terms of people with DSDs, just won a bad genetic lottery and didn't know about their condition until it was too late? Um, why are we prioritizing the feelings over one male over literally every single other female who's competing in the categories? I mean, think about Angela, what's her last name? Bergnini something. What
I think
was it?
it starts with a C. It starts with a
Oh,
C.
sorry.
I
Sorry, I
think
was way off.
it sounded like a director.
It could be. I could be. Yeah, I mean, just
Angela
something
Carini.
Ini. Yeah. Well, I just think of this: how much training went into this person. The getting up at 5 a.m. to train and go to the gym and just nonstop. And these are Olympians. This is like the highest
Yeah.
echelon of sport you can ever get. The amount of training is insane. And not saying that Imane Khelif didn't train, but you don't. If you're a woman and you're training your whole life, you don't expect to get into the match and then all of a sudden you're being forced to box a biological male who shouldn't be there in the first place. So it's all the ethical arguments to me just evaporate when they're on the side when trying to just get males into female sports, because that is completely outweighed by all the ethical concerns on the other side. They're just, again, I think it's the short term sort of kudos they get from people who are maybe more ideological than they are ethical and political for anything. So they just, it's all political, and it's all kind of a virtue signal at some point. But as I say in the piece, like this virtue signaling could get someone severely injured or killed, and we need to be honest about that.